Hey, Jonathan. How are you?
Hey, Donnie baby. I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. I'm still down in the ground floor during the construction because
Oh
it's still not
boy.
over. So,
hmm
hey, whatever.
But still,
It is
that
what it
I
is.
love that backdrop though. That artwork behind you is awesome.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very happy about it.
So
It's
that
one of
part's
the
good.
very impressive piece. Yeah, that's good. But
That's
again,
right.
any excuses? I'm sorry. Apologies if there's any overhead noise or sawing or whatever they're doing because they're still doing it. So anyway, what are we talking about this week? What are we going to talk about?
Oh, we're gonna talk about the pivot. What it means to make that
Yes.
change when you're on one path and you hop off that path and get on another. I'm excited. I'm looking
Yeah,
forward to
I'm
this
I'm
one.
really glad you brought this one up. Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up. It was time for me to do a personal life pivot too. So I got to tell you, the timing on this one is really good, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Ooh, let's dig in. Woo!
Welcome back.
Hey,
Just
everybody.
audience, just so you know, Jonathan counted it down because we have a prompter that counts it down, but he decided to throw me a curveball and count it down. So welcome to Life as We Know It, the
Hey.
podcast that shines a light on individuals and groups, small local businesses and organizations making a difference in our community.
Yes, sir.
You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find us on Instagram at Life as We Know It Podcast 123. And if you want the real deal, the full us, please come and see us on YouTube, at
YouTube.
Life as We Know It, Jonathan and
Jonathan
Don.
and
And
Don.
please hit
Yeah.
that like and subscribe button.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
It's not
So
that
Jonathan,
hard.
let's jump into this because I'm excited to talk about this.
Okay, so
What brought it up?
What brought it up is I check out a lot of other podcasts, and I stumbled across this podcast called The Pivot, and it's three ex-NFL football players, Ryan Clark, Fred Taylor, and Channing Crowder, and they interview, for the most part, athletes, and some rappers like, brothers in the rap game and sisters. And at some point, usually before it ends, they say, okay, we ask this question every week. When in your life did you make a big pivot which changed your trajectory? And usually it's for the positive, but a pivot, sometimes you don't take the pivot and you should have, and then you have regrets. And sometimes you make the wrong pivot. But for the most part, when people talk about it, and I started hearing this in a lot of entrepreneurial business podcasts, and they were talking about how a lot of businesses might be doing well through the 90s, and then they're gone in the 2000s unless they did some kind of pivot. And they say, oh, and we're not just selling widgets now, we're also selling cupcakes or whatever it is. So they all talk about you have to be ready to do that pivot. And it's hard for a lot of people because we're creatures of comfort, and we like to often just stay in that lane, even if it's kind of miserable. And it's scary to make the pivot. So that's how I came up with it. What do you got, Bebop and Donnie, baby?
Well, I was. It's interesting and fortuitous that you come up with this right now because I'm feeling I'm listening to my, what am I saying? My inner voices that are telling me it's time to do that because we've talked about this podcast, and one of the things I wanted to pivot on is I want to continue to improve what we do, this product that we're making or what that we're making for personal enjoyment as a hobby, but also I want it to be better. And one of those things when I thought I'm a little too comfortable in, the format of what we're doing. So I wanted to take a look at rebranding our Instagram.
Okay.
I think there's some things we can do to actually improve what we're doing to make it better and also just a better quality of product. So that's one of the pivots I want to be making too. But I'll be honest with you, this remodel and work has been incredibly draining over the last few months. So the job is very physical, what I do. And right now the I guess the discomfort of having people in the house and really uprooting your routine is giving me the idea that it's a good time to pivot and change something over too. So, this is going on through mid-November now. So we're going on like 7 or 8 weeks with this thing. So it definitely makes me feel unsettled. But I mean, not in a great way, but in a way that makes me want to make some changes.
But that is a good.
There's a lot of things I've been thinking.
Sorry, when your life in some kind of way is a mess, that's often a good motivator or impetus to pivot. And that, like you said, it's chaotic in your house, and it's made you think, okay, this is kind of Shitsville. What else is Shitsville? And now I'm going to make this move. So cool.
Yeah, and I don't want to equate this with New Year's resolutions, considering the holidays are coming up. This is something, as you mentioned, where a pivot is a kind of definitely a life change. It's not just changing a habit or saying you're going to go work out at the gym more because of the new year.
Right.
This is something where I really want to reprogram some things that I've been very comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I'm going to show you one of the most basic ones. When I go to bed at night, I automatically pick up my Kindle and start scrolling through YouTube videos.
Bad sleep hygiene.
Yes.
Bad sleep hygiene.
Yes. And I think it's taking a long-term effect, and I think it's time to pivot and change that.
Okay.
So one of the things I'd intended to do about that was to actually read instead of going to a video feed with a book.
Yes,
and
sir.
I mean, I know you could appreciate that, but that's to me, that's a pivot. I think that's a change because it actually has a lot of effects. You're getting to sleep better. You're not preoccupied with technology.
Yeah.
And I just think it was time because there's a lot of books out there that I find interesting, but I never take the time to read them.
Right.
So that's one of the pivots I wanted to be making too. What about you?
Just to add to that one, now all the studies are pretty much agreed that blue light, and even with the blue light blocker, it's harder for you to get to that deeper REM cycle. So even if you're sleeping through the night, it's that light sleep, and you don't get that fulfilled deep sleep if you're looking at a tablet before you go to bed or whatever. And a book won't do that to you. You just use a book light or just your lamp. And a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, I read a book and I fall asleep." Well, that's kind of the idea too, with a book. But with that tablet, just because you close your eyes, your brain wheels are still zzz, like those saws upstairs that keep screaming. Yep. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm always telling my clients, just change it up, because we get stimulus all day long, and if the last thing is a screen, it's fucking up your sleep.
I got another one for you. And again, I really want to make sure I'm clarifying that this is not a New Year's resolution thing. This is actually something that I'm trying to change.
Okay.
And one of the things is, remember I used to talk about how much I was rowing and enjoying my rowing machine and my exercise routines?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Are you still rocking?
I fell off the rowing machine, man. It's, to be honest with you, there's so much. I was working so much. I was traveling for work. This remodel thing is kind of disheveled everything. The work, it's kind of, and I'm not want to use it as an excuse, but I remember, and my body remembers how good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to be honest, my body felt better when I was working out and when I was eating better.
Okay.
And I know it sounds like basic stuff, but this is another pivot that I want to take because I remember, and like I said, my body remembers.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. So,
and it's time.
You felt it one way and the other way, so you will go back to the rowing machine. And the good thing is, it's still there. So all you have to do, and then you're like, oh yeah, why'd I stop this?
Well, it's definitely still there.
Yeah,
it's under a layer of sawdust right now.
Right. Which reminds me of the pandemic when Peloton sales went through the roof. And then 6 months later, people were hanging their clothes off the Pelotons. So it's shiny new is exciting in the beginning, and then the hard part is fighting through that 6 month marker, 7-8 months, keeping it going. I mean, you can do it less frequently or whatever, but make sure you keep that rowing machine, Peloton, that thing, long walks. Keep that. Don't let it slide. And it only takes, to me, I find, 2 weeks. 2 weeks without that thing, and next thing you know, it's 3 months. If you skip 2 weeks, and it can happen like that, it can happen. So I like your pivots.
But I have to say, you didn't fall off the wagon. You actually stayed. You're quite good and diligent again about sticking to your guns on that. How do you do that?
I do change it up. I did start again. I did yoga for 366 days. And then I thought, okay, now I'm a yoga guy, and I went back to the things I sort of missed, and I started up again. Like, I'm going to do it again, but go long, just make it a regular habit, like yoga every day. So I went 35, 40 days, and I'm like, I'm kind of bored of this. So I thought, okay, if I don't stick with this, then I got to replace it with something else. And so I've sort of adapted my weightlifting and the heavy bag stuff. And then in doing that, I'm like, I should do more yoga. So now I'm kind of missing it. Like, you stepped away from the rowing machine, you want to go back, right? So that is okay.
Yeah.
I mean, we're going to be here for a long time. You can always adjust within your pivot.
But
Yeah.
did you actually do literally 366 days of yoga?
Yeah, I did that. I've done that more than once. And it's because I am not good at yoga, but it makes me feel, I mean, I need it. Otherwise my low back would get sore. It's so beneficial, and it's not, now that I'm older, I don't want to be doing heavy, like ballistic stuff like I used to. Even when I kick the bag now, so especially having had bone cancer, it's more about the movement as opposed to bringing a whole bunch of power and like, wha-bam! I'm not so much doing that, but I still want to be able to keep the hips open and kick as high as before and get the cardio, and I love doing it. So, but yoga helps kicking the bag. Yoga helps with the weightlifting, and it helps. But everyone's got to find that thing. I have some friends and clients that tried it and it wasn't for them, but they did Pilates. They love that. So I said, yeah, Joseph Pilates took many movements from yoga and then he made his own thing. So pitter patter, get at her. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you about this whole thing. I know we're saying the word pivot a lot, but my question is, like, I'm feeling the need for a pivot. You know, and my body's saying it, my mind is telling me. But some people make a pivot because it's the new year, you know, and then they try that pivot. So I guess my question is, do you do pivots, or do your pivots come from inside you, or do you come from like outside stimulus? Like, oh, I want to do that. Is it more internal or external?
All of it. I would say if I'm getting too comfortable and I'm not getting results, then that's one reason I want to change. And then also, if I'm getting bored, anytime you get bored, you'll start to slack, and I don't want to do that. I mean, I'm lucky that I do enjoy it, but I have to change it up. I always have to sort of change it up, and you know, I'll go to Tai Chi, and that takes a lot of discipline to move real slow. But you know, it works different muscles in a different way. So yeah, variety. I need variety for sure.
Okay, because I think you mentioned a key word there is like being comfortable. And I don't mean you don't want to feel uncomfortable, but sometimes comfortable is, I kind of just, I reflect a little bit saying, gosh, you know, I've been doing or not been doing something for this long. And like you said, I either missed it or it's like, I know that my body's telling me, you know what, dude, you got to get back on this, whatever that thing might be.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a combination for me, because I'm feeling physical pivots I need to make, but also this is a little different, the mental pivots. Okay. You know, the reading thing was one, and also like I'm feeling this need to pivot on how I'm learning things, and learning through the podcast, learning new technical stuff, learning to read more about people who are successful with podcasting and how we can change that for us. Also education, like we talked about, maybe me jumping into, I might want to go to some professionals to see how they're improving their podcasts. So I'm kind of feeling it on a few levels, not just the physical, exciting, but also now the mental, where I'm trying to, maybe I need to stimulate myself more mentally.
And they
You
say
know?
that's the best way to stave off Alzheimer's anyway, is to learn new stuff, not so much just doing a crossword over and over and over. It's learning new things. Kick something up in the brain there.
Where are you with like? Do you when you create a pivot? Are you very specific? Like, do you create a vision board? Do you have a checklist? Do you have a bullet points? Like, how do you do yours?
I set it up so just enough, whatever that percentage is, of something I don't really want to do. You know, like when I did yoga, I thought I thought I can do 6 months. So I said, "Oh yeah, what else you got, champ? Do it for a year." And I thought, "Fuck, that's a long time." And then right then, this is a conversation I'm having with myself. It's like I don't want to do a year, so therefore I'm going to do a year. And then I thought, in case I missed a day, which I didn't, so I said, "Okay, I'm going to beat my own goal," and I added that 366 day, and I thought, "You're such an idiot." But yeah, so make it set you don't want to be unrealistic, and where it just consumes you, and you don't want to make it easier for yourself. So you can't bullshit yourself. So I always said it just out of where it's got to be hard, because it's the hard things that make you better. When you lift weights, it's resistance against that muscle. You're pushing or you're pulling against it. It's the same thing with habits and goals. This is a problem with people that do, and the industry knows this. They say, do this for 6 weeks, do this for 12 weeks, and you will lose X amount of pounds. And they know that they can get you to buy in for that 6 or 12 weeks, but most people aren't going to say, "Oh, I'm changing my lifestyle now because I changed my pattern for 6 weeks." That's not enough. That's not long enough. But the people that sell you the package and the pill and the drink and the powder, they don't care. And I think a lot of people will feel amazing. They'll go back to the bad habits, and then the person selling you the product, hey, I'm still here. Come back for another 6 weeks. Come back for another 12. And a lot of them like, "Oh, since you're an alumni, we'll give it to you for 22% off or whatever," right? So they keep selling you stuff. So those things, unfortunately, I find that a shame that they set people up for that, because if you want to change your habits, you have to do it for a lengthy period of time. That's a cute goal: 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, and you don't have to do that intensity forever, but stick with that rowing machine, that Peloton, that whatever it is, that martial art.
I'm going to think of this pivot as more of a campaign. And what I mean by that is a campaign for me is something where I say, okay, there's, like, we talked about the things that I'd like to pivot up on, but for me, a campaign is like, I'd like to say, okay, this is a start time for me. And it's not I'm going to stay away. Again, not resolution. This is a start time. Like, I feel all of this stuff is really compelling me mentally and physically to make some changes and pivots.
Yeah.
And when I do it as a campaign, it's like, okay, I'm going to actually think about this. And I'm not usually a list guy. I'm not usually a vision board guy, but I also feel like I need to make some notes and organize this a little bit, because I've never done it that way before.
Okay. Yeah.
I decided, okay, I usually just jump in.
Try it.
This time, I think as a campaign, and I wanted to, you're right. So I'm going to try something new. It's going to be a different way of creating this pivot. And I'm going to be a little more specific about it.
Yeah. And keep tailoring it. I saw an interview with Zac Efron, right? And he always looks physically amazing, but I think he did carnivore. I think he did keto. He tried Mediterranean. He tried a bunch of different stuff, of course, and trainers and different workouts until he found what works for him. So you have to seek the knowledge and try different things. And there is definitely not one size fits all. You got to figure out what works for you.
I like what you said, like seeking the knowledge, seeking what works for you.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's something. If you could bottle that thing that you do. So I'm going to go back to the yoga example.
Okay.
366 days of yoga.
Right.
Yoga, and the way what I'm hearing from you is that you said, what do I not like to do? Like, and it sounds like it's a personal challenge.
It is, because I'm not good at yoga, and And people, yogis might say, well, what's good is if you're doing it, if you show up on the mat. I said, no. When I say that, it's if my master showed me a kick, I could get it pretty quickly. When my brother showed me how to swing a bat or a hockey stick, I could get it quickly. I did not get yoga quickly because my body said, dude, this is not what we do. We came up in the 80s with Arnold in the gym, in Gold's Gym, and we lifted heavy things. We're not supposed to do this bendy shit. And so I thought, nah, I'm older now. Let me do the bendy shit. And it's great. It's great for balance. It's challenging. And I don't like it until I'm doing it. And then when I'm finished it, you know? So that means, and I know it's good for me.
Okay, so I was just going to ask you that. So do you dislike it? Do you dislike yoga still?
I'm almost like it depends on the day. So, and shit,
Okay.
I've been at it for, off and on for 20 years. And I'm not much better. I wouldn't say I'm better because I'm a little older, but the benefits are there. A lot of aches and pains have been taken away because of yoga, for sure. Breathing is better because of yoga, for me. So.
Okay. So what I guess the other question, because I'm intrigued now, is, and again, back to the yoga example. Mm-hmm. How do you bottle the discipline to say, okay, I really, really do not want to go do yoga today. I would rather have an eggs Benedict and a glass of champagne. And yet you still did that yoga.
Well, you say, like my minimum would be like 25 minutes of yoga. So I might say, you know what, tonight I'm heading over to Donnie Baby's and there's going to be some lovely wine and a nice meal, and there might even be dessert. So therefore, I'll do an hour of yoga, and then I get that reward of heading over to your place and doing that thing. So that's the other thing. Like, and I met a guy at a conference, and he said, you know, I admit I met him out in Texas, actually. He goes, you know, I admit I drink every day. But if I don't work out that day, I'm not allowed to have a drink. He goes, so I work out every day because he wants to have that drink. And it was hilarious, but he's very disciplined on that. And he goes, I'm not getting hammered every day. He goes, but at the end of the workday, I like to have my bourbon, you know. He goes, one or two, but I'm not allowed to have them if I didn't work out that day. So he works out every day. You got to set up little tricks and hacks for yourself.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw this.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a...
Sorry.
That will be in the edit. Is this on?
And allow yourself to snap when you're pissed off.
and audience, this has not been your typical recording session. I got to tell you, we've all got different bells and whistles and snaps and warts going on this week. I don't know what it is, but...
Yeah.
So I guess, what I was hearing, because I'm hearing like I've got a certain way I'd like to deal with it. You have a certain way. The example you just used is basically there's an agreement reached by this guy who decided if he doesn't work out, he doesn't get his bourbon. So I guess there's not just one way to do this.
Oh no, and you gotta okay. Nobody knows you better than you. So you have to kind of say to yourself, what can I do so I don't cheat? Because cheating is pretty easy. Everyone can say, you know what?
Yes.
Tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. I don't have to do this. You're not the boss of me. All that shit. It's easy to just say, I'm not going to do it. And people have said, oh, man, you're so disciplined. Here's the other secret. When you get to 2 months, 2.5 months, maybe 3 months of doing that thing, it becomes a habit, and you just do it. And it's not discipline at all. At all. I don't look at any of that stuff as discipline. And again, I'm still doing yoga and don't really like doing it. But I know the benefit. Like, I don't have the sore low back. Breathing's better. Sleeping's better, for sure. I used to snore a ton until I got into yoga. So,
I guess it's going to take a little bit of reprioritization of things that we think are important.
Yeah.
too.
And you can ease in slowly. Like, don't you say, I'm going to row an hour a day, or damn it, I'm going to yell at my husband. You can just say, I'm going to go see how it goes. And then, okay, you know what? I'll get down to the machine 3 times this week. I don't know how long I'll stay on it. And then you can start setting up but ease, you're dipping your toe in the water as opposed to jumping in the deep end.
Yep.
That's cool too.
Yep. I got to say, though, if you could find a way to bottle that
You want the magic
consistency,
pill.
and we call it a cologne called Consistent, you would make $1 billion.
Consistant for the French. Consistant.
Hey, you had also, at the beginning, at the top of this, you had mentioned the podcast you watched, and you said,
Yep.
I think you said something about the guys choose to pivot or choose not to pivot.
Yes, and I was going to relate that to
Right.
going way back. I made a big pivot, which kind of informed my work ethic now because it was the closest thing to a regret. So when I was in I was 18, 19, 20, I was running track and field, and I was doing very well at the 400 meters. I got to a point that my times were just dropping, and coaches and stuff started to notice me. And then my coach was contacted by the Canadian Olympic team and said, we're seeing his times. There's no video back then because this is 84, 5, 6 type of thing. But they were in talks, and they said, we have a weightlifting program, a training program, a diet. We have all this stuff. We want him to try out for the Olympic team. Now, my siblings had left because I'm the youngest, and I mostly kept this to myself because it was exciting and scared the shit out of me at the same time. And in those days, there was no money in it. So I moved out of my house the year I graduated, like the day pretty much. We graduated in June, and I moved in with a buddy July 1st. So I was already out of the house and working and paying bills. Well, even if I got an endorsement, I may have been given a tracksuit. But with all that training, there's no way. I mean, it would have been tough. I could have asked my parents, "Can you support me while I do this?" And I didn't because I think they would have said yes. So that was a big moment. I was young. I was 18 and a half. And so I pivoted and decided to not run anymore. I went on to play football for, I think, 2 years after that. And that was fun and stuff. I knew I wasn't going to be a professional football player. But so I had that shot, and I didn't take it. So for many years, I kind of regretted it. And here's why. I was gearing up for the 1988 Olympics. And in that year, a sprinter named Ben Johnson, who ran for Canada, I think he was a Jamaican brother, but he won the 100 meters. So I would have been on his team. And then he got stripped for steroids. So I remember watching that race on TV, and I thought, oh, my God, I was like close to tears. I was just so happy that a Canadian-Jamaican, won the 100-meter dash. And then I found out about steroids, and I thought, another regret was if I always kind of felt, I remember saying this to my brother, I think I could have spoken to Ben and talked him out of the steroids. Of course, that's just ego talking. He probably would have just done it anyway because he actually got quite a lot bigger and faster and stronger, so they worked for him. So he probably would have taken them, and I think the doctors... We didn't have a program like the Russians where they can kind of hide the drugs you're on, or Lance Armstrong or whatever. But and I'd been offered steroids during track and during football, and my ego was like, if I can't do it on my own, I'm not doing it. So we used to tell them, yeah, I'll never touch a drug, so forget that. So what ended up happening by not doing that pivot, it made me really driven to pursue music, and then so I did music until, I still play now. I don't do as much because I never wanted to have that feeling of not going for it. So that was a big, almost a missed pivot or a pivot away from a certain path. But it made me so driven. I'm not going to quit drumming. I'm just not going to quit things. And even if in my 50s, if I say I'm going to do 365 days, I'm going to do 366. So there, that's where that shit comes from, because that feeling of, I don't even want to call it regret, because I love life and I don't really have regrets. It was just a different path. But that I can, sometimes it's a pivot you don't take or the one you miss. So basically, don't be chicken shit. Go for it. Pivot when you have to. But it doesn't mean it's going to work out, Because my wife says...
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Yeah, my wife says if you had gone that way, maybe we would not have met. You would have gone down this track road, and who knows? And that could be true.
Yeah.
So I say, yeah.
I'm a great believer in everything is destined to be. If we made a different choice, we could be on a completely different path.
Right.
I got to say, I'm looking forward to some of these changes. And I guess I'm going to say it one more time. This pivot is more towards getting back to basics for me, but also the newest part of it is, like I said, like re-educating or learning something new.
Right.
Still learning something new.
Right.
And that's kind of a different mindset for me. I never was one of those, like, I want to improve my mind. It's going to be more like, I want to improve the quality of our podcast. Once we get out of this construction zone, I'm sure it will improve. There'll be no doubt about that.
If you can podcast in a construction zone, you can podcast anywhere.
You can podcast anywhere.
But you will,
I'm
will
looking
find
forward
and,
to
and,
this,
and
this thing.
back to your rowing machine and back to all you cats that fell off that, let's say it's a fitness regime. When you go back to it, because you've done it before, you're going to be better the second time around. And then you'll make some changes this time around, because in the beginning it was new, exciting. It was the honeymoon stage, right? And then you kind of fell off when the bloom went off the rose. But when you come back, it's going to be like, man, this feels good to be back. So now you appreciated it because you were away from it, and you're going to dig it even more. And then you're going to be like, okay, now it takes care of itself. It is a habit. I don't have to force myself onto the machine. I don't have to force myself to the yoga mat,
Right. And I kind of do miss yoga too. During COVID, I was very much into the yoga thing. So I have to agree with you. There were some really great benefits to stretching your body certain ways, just to make it less painful. And so I'm looking forward to that.
All right.
So I think Oh, you know what? I've got one more.
Yeah.
One more. Then, I have found that I'm starting to get a little more. Or a little less, a little more frustrated. And what I mean by that is, I think eventually, I hate to say it, but we all turn into our parents in some shape or form.
Okay.
And I'm trying to catch that in the bud before it happens. I'm trying to see, like, what am I getting mad about? What am I frustrated about? What is actually causing me to lash out at the dogs or my husband or what?
Do you have the answer?
No, I think it's a combination of frustrations right now. But again, my thing is that I'm catching it now. I'm aware of it. It's like, okay, why is this happening? Yeah. So that's something I'm choosing to find out what that pivot is.
I found out. Well, I know what that one is for me because I have it too. I get pissed off. The fuse seems to be shorter, and I know exactly why it is. And it is because we have this election coming up, right? And it doesn't matter right or left. What pisses me off is how divided the country is and how people are treating each other. And I'm actually shocked that it's happening. I thought we were all smarter than this, better than this, nicer than this, kinder than this. I repeat myself. I thought we were better than this. And if you had told me 7 years ago that it would be like this, I'd say, no, we're not that stupid. But I'm sorry. I said stupid. I said, we barely watch the news just enough to know what's happening. And what happened the other day? Trump had a rally and a comedian said something. And then, so the Dems jumped on what the comedian said. And then Biden said something about the supporters, but he was referring to the supporters at that rally that laughed at the joke, but then their side. So they had this big fucking melee around absolutely nothing, absolutely the small thing, instead of the issues that are Ukraine, the homeless, the economy, all that stuff. And I thought, you stand back and you're watching it like a car crash. Like, car crash, you feel bad for the people, but stand back and you watch this stuff. You are volunteering to be a fucking moron by getting into this, and the media is useless, completely useless. They shouldn't give it an ounce of time, but they're ginning it up. It's a hornet's nest, and the bottom of it is already on fire. And because they're already saying now, we're going to beef up everything because this is going to be such a tornado, regardless who wins. Well, what kind of country is that? When you're actually telling people that there's going to be riots in the streets because nobody can conduct themselves. Strong character has gone out the fucking window, and it's not that hard. Like, smarten up and don't just listen to a talking point. Don't go down the internet and don't troll people and just like, I only listen to this one because they agree with me. Use your head, independent thought. I know I'm all over the map, but and you started by talking about getting pissed off. That's the only thing that pisses me off. Everything else, I am just a fucking happy butterfly. I don't even know what the fucking that means. I like butterflies, god damn it.
Hey everybody, I'm Don Pafifer.
And I'm Jonathan J. Brown. And together,
We are the hosts of the podcast Life as We Know It.
We have an invitation for you. Are you an individual starting a new business?
Do you or your business have an interesting story?
Well, we want to share that because you're making a difference with the community. So we want you to contact us at Life as We Know It Podcast 123 Instagram and tell us what your story is so we can share that with the world.
We can't wait to have you here. You know what? We're going to blow your jazz up.
Okay, I'm going to find a way to make that our thing. I'm going to blow your jazz up.
damn it.
And now we have the episode's title, I Like Butterflies, Goddamn It. Episode 12.
Where's my butterfly net, woman? I'm chasing butterflies.
Maybe we need a net.
Yeah, so no, that's why I'm pissed. Nothing else pisses me off.
I get it.
Traffic and
No, I
whatever,
get
I'm
it.
fine. This is people being stupid when they have the intellect to be better. But they're not using the drive, which it doesn't take much. Like, don't be hoodwinked. Pay attention. Like you said, read, learn, listen. Stop the shit. Just because your team seems stronger than that team, maybe. God damn it, excuse me. Fuck, excuse me. God damn it. Sorry, Tom. So,
That's okay.
what do you think of this episode so far?
I think that was a pivot. That was a pivot. I think
It was, yes. That's when the
that was a
episode
pivot
went off the
into.
rails.
But you know what? I get it, and that's how we're learning how to do this podcast. We're learning, and that was the intent to like talk about what we wanted to talk about and share what we wanted to share, and it was on topic. It was still on topic. Mm-hmm. You went into the detail. That's all.
Yeah,
that's just not bad.
Yeah, and then when I'm not thinking about it, and I happen to snap at that feral cat in my yard, I know it's not so much the cat. I'm thinking about this shit.
Okay.
This shit. So maybe you're.
Okay.
Maybe
yeah,
it's.
I feel like we're all on edge.
Yeah.
I think we're all on edge.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm looking forward to then.
Yeah. What are we looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to a pivot and a campaign, as I labeled it, to change some things that I can do, because we can only do what we can do for ourselves. We could start with ourselves. I shouldn't say that. We can start with ourselves, and hopefully those positive changes will affect somebody in a good way. So, I think to get onto that, it's like that's what we're going to do. That's what I'm going. This is what I can do. I can be kinder. I can be more educated. I can be healthier. I can make better choices. Let's start there.
Okay, we got a pact. Hey, we got a tribe. Well, wait a minute.
Okay. Okay, so
Yeah. But I remember earlier you said you didn't want this to be confused.
I think.
Go ahead. Oh, you said you didn't want
okay.
the
Go ahead.
pivot to be confused with a New Year's resolution. And we could call those mini pivots or minor changes, but I said this on our previous podcast, and I'll say it again. If you are the type of person that likes New Year's resolutions, start December 1st. Don't wait till January, because December, that's when you just abuse all the food, the booze, the partners, whatever. You're just going to go super gluttonous and then say, oh, January 1st, I'm going to be a good person. Start December so you're hitting the ground running in the new year. That's the hack, baby. Start there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is why, today's basically November 1st. I'm not sure when this is going to air, but November 1st. And I wanted to be very clear that it wasn't based on the fact that January 1st is around the corner.
Right, yeah.
So this is something I've been thinking about for a while now. But again, I'm going to make it more of a decisive choice with some very specific bullet points.
Yeah. Well,
that I don't forget,
so by January 1st, you will have been on that rower for 2 months. Boom. See what you did there?
Well, I don't know if I'm going to get on it today because of the state of the house.
After this podcast, just get on there and rant the way I did with each roll. Like,
Okay, so do you think we covered this?
yeah, and I apologize. I went off the deep end there, but hey, passion is passion, baby.
That's okay.
What are you going to do?
It happens. Yeah, exactly. So I guess if we're good, let's wrap this one up.
Okay. Thanks for coming by, everybody.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We hope you'll join us next time for more exciting discussions, more passionate discussions, more guests, more improvements on our podcast.
Yes.
Sharing, exciting stories about people and ourselves, groups and businesses making a difference in the community, of course.
Yep.
And of course, our thoughts and obviously our opinions on everything. You can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can find us on Instagram at Life As You Know It Podcast 123. And don't forget, you can find us, of course, the full thing, the full frame, the full everything on YouTube at Life As You Know It, Jonathan and Don.
Woo!
Don't forget to hit and smash that subscribe button. Look forward to more podcasts like this, Jonathan, because we really went there.
Yeah, man. And send us your
So
comments and ideas for other shows. And if you want me to rant more, let us know.
Yes, please let us know. Okay, Jonathan. I will talk with you next time. We'll set something up.
Okay,
and
man.
We'll see you soon.
All right, buddy. Cheers.
Okay, take care. Bye.